Good evening and welcome to the regularly scheduled Board of Directors meeting for Marin Municipal Water District on Tuesday, March 4th. Terry, if I get a roll call, please.
Yes, good evening. Director Ranjiv Kush,
Here.
Vice Chair Jed Smith.
Here.
Oh, and President Matt Sampson.
Oh, and yes. Do we have any public comment on adoption of the agenda?
There are none.
Can I motion to adopt the agenda, please?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you.
Roll call.
Director Kush,
Aye.
Vice Chair Smith,
Aye.
and President Sampson.
Aye.
It's okay.
Great. And with that, we'll go ahead and move to closed session and join the regular meeting and move to closed session.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm sorry. Thank you. Molly, are there any public comments on the closed session?
There are none.
Great, thank you. Good evening, everybody, and welcome back to our regular open session of the board meeting this evening. We just convened our closed session with no reportable action. And with that, we'll go ahead and move to public comment on non-agenda matters.
Yes, we do have one speaker, Phil Sauter.
Good evening. I'm sure everyone has seen today's Supreme Court ruling undermining the 1972 Clean Water Act and will now allow greater discharge of raw sewage into U.S. waterways. An immediate beneficiary of this ruling is San Francisco, which had been prevented from discharging sewage into the ocean during rainstorms when the ocean would already have poor water quality. After today's ruling, raw sewage can be released no matter how polluted the ocean already is. I'm not sure, but I expect this ruling would also allow more raw sewage and other contaminants to be discharged into San Francisco Bay and perhaps into the Russian River and other bodies of water, which the district may view as alternative sources of supply for Marin water customers. I think it would be worth analyzing this ruling to see if water outside our own watershed would become more problematic. If there's a bright side for me, it's how lucky we are to have our own local supply of high quality water that's free of sewage, PFAS, and other pollutants.
There are no further speakers.
Great. And with that, we'll go ahead and move to Director and General Manager's announcements. Ben, starting with you.
No announcements this evening.
Great, thank you. Director Mayor.
For me.
Great. Hi, we had the Finance and Administration Committee meeting on February 27th, our first non-special meeting since I've been on the board. Diane was also there as the other representative on the committee. So the staff provided the committee a report and an overview of the RFP process, selecting a vendor or recommending the selection of a vendor for systems integration and implementation of the first phase of our district enterprise resource planning modernization project. That'll include both HR, benefits, employee self-service, time entry, and various payroll functions. The selection process has been completed. The staff is recommending going forward with Phoenix Business Consulting for the award contract. The contract award recommendation is an item for tonight's agenda. I think we were particularly impressed by this organization's ability to not just handle this set of modules, but future modules that will be important for us. So they seem to have broad capabilities and are available to go. So and also, as they may note later, they do have the ability and understand the importance of bringing historical data forward for us. Some of the other folks did not want to do that, but I think having that kind of information will be helpful for us as we make decision-making in the future. Staff also provided a monthly financial report and an update and quarterly investments. Additionally, staff provided, which was all solid, on target, and as expected. Actually, our financial returns have been better than historically expected, and therefore has offset some of this slight shortfalls that we have in other parts of the P&L. Staff also provided a presentation on kicking off our 2-year budget process for 2025-26 and 26-27, and along with some high-level budget updates and FAC meetings and planning going forward. So this is going to be important as we think through how to keep our reins tight on expenses, and we go into a rate setting process in 2 years. our encouragement was to be as conservative as possible, stay on plan as much as possible, and hopefully make rates going forward to be much more normalized than the big jump that we had to have in the past. Now, the public may access the staff reports and the video recording from the February 27th Finance Committee meeting on the district's website, and open any questions if you want in the meantime.
Any questions?
Yeah, thanks, Jed, for the summary. On the new budget development process, is there a point at which it'll come to the board, or the finance committee meeting will convert back to a special meeting? So,
Yeah, it'll convert to a special meeting of the board, so that the whole board will be invited to a future finance committee meeting. It's on the schedule. I forgot the exact date.
yeah, I
so-
think we discussed that.
And so this was really just a high level overview. It's coming. It's important, and just highlighting it.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Director Kusch.
That's all for me.
Nothing from me, thanks.
No general announcements. Ben, I hope that you and staff share the excitement coming out of last week's meeting, the big decisions that were made towards water supply. I know this board's been very excited about it. It's a really big milestone to hit. So hoping you share the same excitement here in the district.
Yeah, President Sampson, I'd say it has created a lot of energy and excitement, and frankly, appreciation for the board. It's able to take on, and we make decisions, and we're actually moving forward. So yeah, there's a lot of energy behind this, and we're already starting a lot of work associated with it.
That's really good to hear, because it's based on all the work that the staff's doing under your leadership. So thank you for making that happen. So can't wait. It's gonna be a big year. Great. And with that, I think Director Smith, or Vice President Smith, excuse me, you knocked out number 7. So we can move on to number 8, consent items. Do we have any public comment on the consent calendar?
There are none.
Great. Can I have a motion to accept to adopt the consent items, please?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Director Kusch,
Aye.
Director Mayer,
Aye.
Vice President Smith.
Aye.
And President Sampson.
Great. Moving on to item number 9. A, the approval of professional services agreement for systems integration for SAP implementation services. What's that?
All right. Good evening, directors. My name is Brett Uppendall. I'm the finance director, and I have with me here Brad Taylor, our district's IT manager. And as Director Smith mentioned, we did go through this presentation in the last FAC, but it is such a critical project, and it is over $1 million contract. We wanted to make sure I brought this back to the full board, have a chance to answer any questions that you may have about the process. So I'll be turning it over to Brad here in just a minute. I did want to just start off by thanking Brad and his team, particularly Raj here behind me, who's the project manager for this effort. There really is a lot of work, a lot of complicated details, and Raj and Brad both did a great deal of due diligence to get us to this point. And as you'll hear from Brad, this is really kind of the first step in what's going to be a multi-year process to really modernize our overall SAP framework. So we're excited about working here with hopefully with Phoenix Business Consulting Group on this first leg. And it'll be, like I said, the first step in many over the next couple of years, and Brad will outline that process for us here.
Great. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for giving us some time here. We are about to embark on the very first phase of our ERP modernization project, and this is a very exciting development because we are basically gearing up right now for our first implementation. What we're calling phase 0 is really sort of lays a lot of the foundational technologies that we need for the rest of the project and addresses specifically our human capital management functions within ERP. So this includes payroll, time entry, benefits administration, position control, as well as employee self-service, which is a new feature that we'll be sort of introducing as part of phase 0. The last time we met, we were requesting approval for procurement funding to procure SuccessFactors. That is the SAP module for human capital management. It is a software as a subscription model. Since we met, we have instituted our subscription. We've actually have our tenant deployed. We have 3 environments already set up for both dev, test, QA, and production. It's a 5-year agreement, software as a service, and approximately about 200,000 per year is what our subscription costs are going to be. As part of that subscription, we actually purchased something known as Preferred Success, which is basically sort of a higher level of support and assistance from SAP themselves and their professional services teams in helping us sort of get implemented and also working with our partner that we choose as a systems integrator. Let's go to the next slide. So I wanted to give a little bit of an overview of the RFP process. We issued an RFP in November of last year. The RFP requested specific proposals as well as pricing, and also included a supplemental questionnaire of about 50 written questions. We received responses from 6 systems integrators, and this really ran the gamut from SAP professional services themselves, which are usually accustomed to working with Fortune 500 companies, as well as smaller boutique firms that specialize just in SuccessFactors. The cost estimates really sort of ranged from about 950,000 all the way up to about 3.4 million. So it was there was a lot of variety in terms of the approaches, a lot of variety in the terms of the compositions of the project teams and the methodologies. In terms of selection and review of those RFP responses, we included folks from the HR team, finance, information technology group, and we actually conducted those reviews over several weeks, and then ultimately came to a top 3 choice of the vendors within the respondents. We did have a RFP scorecard that we utilized for the process, and once we got down to the last top 2 vendors as contenders, we actually conducted additional technical demonstrations to actually vet those folks even further. Ultimately, it was a unanimous decision with the selection committee, and we chose Phoenix Business Consulting. So a little bit about our finalist. They are an SAP Gold partner, extensive experience with SAP and specifically SuccessFactors implementations, about 250 or so clients over their lifespan in the business of about 26 years. And they really sort of distinguish themselves with their project management methodology, their approach to change within the organization and change management. They also really impressed us with their data migration strategy and approach, which was to actually migrate all of our historical data from the current ERP system, which I think, as was mentioned, is going to be a huge value to us going forward.
A quick question for you, Brett. When you say all of our historical data, is that just the personnel components too, or is actually water use and things like that that'll come over?
Right now, it's just in the human capital management side. So this is HR data. So we'd be able to do workforce analysis and actually kind of see what our attrition rates were over time in certain periods, et cetera, et cetera. So this is specifically just for human capital management.
Okay, thank you.
They also emphasize the use of automation tools in that data migration rather than sort of a brute force methodology. They actually are going to be introducing another technology into our solution stack that's going to remain after we're done, that's going to really help us with analytics and reporting as well. So it really was, kind of the best fit overall in terms of culture, also in terms of their capabilities. And we really were impressed by their best of breed approach. So this is a very high level timeline of kind of the overall project and the effort going forward. Phase 0 right now is slated for completion by January 1 of 2026. We do have a contingency in the project plan to potentially push that to April 1st of 2026 if we find that we don't have the data quality or we have any issues with respect to training and rollout. But soon after, and in parallel with that phase 0 rollout, we're going to start building the RFP for phase 1, which is really going to focus on utility billing and customer services. Following that, and again, these phases are sort of staggered, and in some cases in parallel, we would be then approaching and migrating our accounting and procurement processes and functions within SAP, and then ultimately asset management. Something to note about phase 1 utility billing that obviously dovetails with the AMI project as well. So if all goes as planned, by towards the end of 2027, we will be done with our on-prem SAP, completely in the cloud and completely migrated to the new modern infrastructure.
Now, just add on the slide here, the phases, we're calling them phase 0 internally here because we're really kind of just putting SAP solution on our existing kind of overall framework. Once we get to phase 1 and the utility billing and the accounting, that really starts to implement the S/4HANA kind of brains into our system. And so at that point, we'll be kind of in the cloud and actually using the newest product of SAP. And I would also just point out here that within phase 1, 2, and 3, as you see on the screen, those we may choose to package it all together and have one team doing all 3 of those for us, or we may choose to package those separately depending on how the bid environment and somewhat based on our experience here in phase 0 with HR and payroll. So there's some nuance to that, but the idea there is HR and payroll is going to be integrated both to our legacy system, kind of the old brains and some of the new functionality. And then as we get into phase 1 and phase 2, we'll be kind of implementing the new kind of core of the system, and it'll all be kind of integrated both ways back to our legacy systems as we work. So we're kind of building it while we're flying it in a certain sense.
So in terms of kind of a bit of summary for this particular engagement, we are looking at a total cost of the engagement just a little shy of 1.4 million. That is comprised of about a little over $1 million in implementation and consulting fees, and then a travel and project contingency budget of a little over 300,000. The scope, as I mentioned earlier, includes time entry, payroll, core HR functions, benefits administration, and of course, we're going to be rolling out employee self-service. We are going to be integrating with not only our on-prem environment, but some additional third-party solutions that we use now, specifically around HR functions. And as I mentioned before, January 1st, 2026 is the ideal cutover date, primarily for tax reporting reasons and the fact that we're touching payroll. But we understand that there are probably challenges with November and December with respect of, resources and folks taking vacation and time off. So that's why we've kind of built in a contingency for April 1st. And I think that's it.
Great. Thank you very much for the presentation and for the work to get us to this point. Director comments, Director Kush.
Thanks, Brett. Thanks, Brad. Just a few questions to make sure I'm following the process. So the success factors, that's the software package that we're bringing on for our HR
Correct.
Activities. And Phoenix Business Consulting is going to help us with the integration of specifically the success factors package.
Yes. So implementation of that and configuration of that solution, and then integration with our current on-prem solution.
Right. And then subsequently, as outlined in the full timeline, we'll be bringing in additional software packages that work with SAP to handle utility billing, procurement, and asset management. So those will be additional.
Correct.
And then I'm assuming we'll need additional support for integrating those as well.
Correct. And
making everything work together.
As Brett alluded to, we will have the option and flexibility to either, if things go really well with Phoenix, they do have the capability of implementing some of these other modules. We could shop it out and look for a specialist who specifically focuses on that particular, solution. And there's or a mix and match of either of those directions.
Along those lines, as I understand it, but if you could just touch on it, this effort is relatively smaller compared to the others. So we would expect, for example, the contract for supportive to be notably different as we move into the actual bigger SAP elements. What currently, just as a reminder, do we have budgeted or are we thinking about for the entire project?
So we have a little over $8 million budgeted over 3 years in the overall project. It's likely we'll probably have some tail end to that, meaning that it may take into the 4th year to spend that. I think, depending on when the actual final bills come through and the final modules get turned on. It was difficult to estimate at the beginning where that would come in, but I think just in lines of the overall range, Brad mentioned the range here of the proposals from about $1 million to a little over 3 million, and we were able to kind of stay on the lower end of that. So I think that's a good sign going forward that we'll be able to find at least system integrators that will be within the budget we've outlined going forward. There is some, it's a brand new world in the sense of what we're paying for in the underlying software license and the software as a service, So the ongoing costs will be something we need to continue to figure out in terms of, and Brad can probably explain it better, but we basically have a menu of the services SAP will supply, and you get to kind of pick and choose which SKUs of those you decide to utilize. And so that's a big part of the system integrator selection as well, is kind of using their expertise and their knowledge, knowing that which of these kind of additional modules we need to pay for and use, and which are applicable to an organization that's our size.
Okay, right, because it's helpful to be reminded, this is for us, a big transition from doing everything in-house to now basically obtaining these functions as a service.
And they'll be in the cloud, and they'll be much more, mobile friendly. And obviously we've already seen many of the original demos, and just the upgrade of 20 years of kind of the user interface and the kind of intuitive nature of where the menus are and where you're going to click. It really is a drastic change. And so I think that's what General Manager Hornstein was referring to, is that with the HR and payroll modules, it's a relatively kind of close group of staff, and it's a relatively known commodity. We got to do our basic functions well. As we get into the other modules, it's a lot more integration with all of our staff members in the sense of how they do their core business day to day. And as we get into utility billing, it's also impacting all of our customers as well. So the scope gets bigger. So we will be, likely the contracts will be larger as they come forward. But I think it's still looking good that we can stay inside the overall project budget over the 4 years.
Okay, good. That's good to hear. And I know we've discussed all the rationale for taking this direction exhaustively in the past. So thanks for those reminders. And I guess it's good to start maybe with the more hopefully smaller piece of this and then learn and build from that. Great, thanks. Yeah, no other questions.
Great, thank you. Dr. Smith.
Yeah, as stated, I'm super supportive. I think you guys thought this through. I researched Phoenix. I think they're a perfect fit for what we're looking for. I know SuccessFactors well. They've implemented it in many of my companies. So I'm really looking forward to this. I love that we're working on our staff side first and then moving to the customer next. So this is a great step forward. Thank you.
Dr. Mayer.
I echo what Director Smith said. Looking forward to seeing this implemented. Thank you so much.
Great. Again, Brett and Brad, thank you for the work on this. I don't envy you guys. This is a big lift. And we don't get to see the big results like a water supply project or anything like that, but it's just as integral for doing this. So I appreciate the due diligence to get us to where we're at today too. So it sounds like potentially sometime between 26, 27, that if AMI starts off, that your bills will be automated from meter all the way through delivery and everything.
It's a possibility. I mean, I think it's a long 2 years for us from now, but I think the pathway is there at least now. I think we have the general direction to go, and all signs point to that it's a good possibility within a couple of years we can be automated. Yeah.
No one's holding to those dates, by the way, but it's just really exciting to see that we're becoming a much more modern district, and we're actually getting much more efficient, because that's going to bleed over everywhere. So thank you very much for that. Terry, public comment.
Yes, Phil Sauter, please.
Thank you very much for the presentation. I'm glad to see that one of the modules is a customer information system that includes info on consumption data, billing and rates, water conservation, and customer services. Over the past 2 years, I've been trying to get this information in order to determine things like whether we'll see a rebound in usage, the effect of recent rate increases on conservation, and where we should focus conservation efforts. It's great that the information will be easier to access, but the key question is if the information will actually be there and available for the public to see. For example, one question I've had is what effect our recent rate increases have had on conservation. When we first discussed rate increases, we said that getting more customers into Tier 4 would be one of our most effective conservation methods, since higher water bills would discourage wasting large amounts of potable water outdoors. To see whether or not this is actually happening, I tried searching the website for Tier 4 water sales 2024. I came back with 69 hits, some going back to 2017, but nowhere could I find information on 2024 Tier 4 water sales. The closest I got was a 2022 board presentation listing water sales by tier for the previous 10 years. But as far as I can tell, there's been no update since. No matter how easy the new software will be to use, it won't find information if it isn't there. I'm not sure if staff and the board are able to see this information and the public is locked out, or if no one has access to the information. I've been asking for updates on high water use maps, which are now 8 years old, but haven't been able to get this information. And I wondered if the public has been somewhat or excluded from this. All I know is that information that was available in the past is no longer updated and available. I tried a Google query asking if I was actually entitled to see information from a public agency. I got hits on the Federal Freedom of Information Act and the California Public Records Act, but nothing on Marin Water. So while we're waiting to see a 2026 customer portal into district information, I think this would be a good opportunity to make clear exactly what information is available to the public and what information the district considers off limits and why. And if the information is available, it would be good to know how the public can actually get hold of it. In the meantime, before this project is complete, who should we ask and how should the request be made? There's no reason to wait until the new software is in place, and it would be good to have this issue resolved well before the customer portal goes live in 2 to 3 years. Thank you.
Thank you. There are no further speakers.
Okay, and with that, I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the professional services agreement as written.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Director Kusch,
Aye.
Director Mayer,
Aye.
Vice President Smith.
Aye.
And President Sampson.
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you very much. Moving on to item 9B, amendment number 3 to professional services agreement, MA 5875 with Woodward and Curran.
Good evening, President Sampson, board members, Alex and I, Director of Engineering. This evening with me is Alicia Irish, our Engineering Planning Manager, and we're kind of bringing back a continuation of an item that was presented to the Planning Committee a couple of weeks ago or months ago, should it be now? And now we bring them back with additional information on costs, what the expenditure is going to be for this amendment to really help the planning group as we're going forward with the CIP, provide that assistance, because all the projects that are identified really start in the planning group, and they really do need that assistance, similar to what we do with other groups like in design for geotechnical work and construction with material testing, consultant support service. So this is very similar in nature to that, but more on the engineering planning side. So this evening, I'll go ahead and let Alicia present this item.
Good evening, directors. Alicia Irish, Engineering Manager. So the district's capital improvement program is vital to improving and maintaining its assets over time. We've talked about that fairly extensively in prior meetings, and we're moving forward with the budget set forth by the directors. So the capital improvement program includes more than just the ongoing maintenance activities, design and construction activities, but also key planning activities that set these projects up for success and implementation. And at times, these needs require quick turnaround times and also subject matter expertise. And without these services, sometimes the work has a chance to not be completed due to existing staffing resource limitations and workloads. And like Alex mentioned, similar to the model that we're doing for the design group and the construction management group, by having these on-call services available to leverage in times of need, tonight we're here to ask the board to authorize an amendment with Woodward and Curran for similar on-call planning services. This is an on-call contract, so the cost that we're asking for tonight is not guaranteed, but merely would be available to staff to leverage when needed. Having an on-call engineering planning services contract will allow us to meet all of the district's planning needs as they arise and to facilitate the ongoing development of a long-term capital improvement program. In 2020, the district initiated miscellaneous agreement 5875 with Woodward and Curran to complete the water system master plan. This plan was completed earlier this year and presented to the board at the January Operations Committee. And although this plan is complete, staff recognizes that detailed longer-term capital planning efforts are still needed to evaluate larger infrastructure, such as the district treatment plants, dams, and continued support on time-critical tasks, such as developing seismic reports or design alternatives to respond to grant funding opportunities as they arise. Some of the potential tasks that we may call on Woodard and Curran for include support to the condition assessment for the assessment of the district's pump stations and tanks, dam condition support services for preparation of detailed condition assessments on our dams, as well as ongoing planning engineering support services that include hydraulic modeling for tank adequacy, sizing, and scenario building, 30% engineering design support, as well as project phasing to minimize operational risk and community impacts as our projects move into construction. This amendment has been, this contract has been amended twice, both for no cost extensions. And tonight we're asking that the board consider authorizing the general manager to execute amendment number 3 to professional services agreement 5875 with Woodard and Curran to extend the contract date to June 30th, 2027, and expand the scope of services to support ongoing capital infrastructure planning in an amount not to exceed $432,000 for a new total contract not to exceed amount of $1,870,528.
Alicia, Alex, thank you for that report, and thank you for bringing it back with more detail to be able to explain a little bit more about it. So we've got director's comments for this. Diana Mayer,
Can you come back to me?
not a problem. Director Smith.
Thank you. I appreciate your response and detailed thoughts about this. And sorry if I caught you off guard last time, but I super appreciate having this kind of resources available to us as needed, and I appreciate the definition.
Yeah, my thanks as well, Alicia, Alex. The presentation on the water safety, no, it's not water.
Water system master plan.
Water system master plan from, I don't remember the name, but I remember the presentation. I thought it was really good. And and now I think I have a better understanding of the request for on-call services to facilitate capital improvement projects in the same way as you mentioned, Alicia. We have on-call services for planning activities, I think, and you said we also have on-call services for one other.
We currently, have on-call services for design as well as construction management.
Design and construction management. So now we would like to implement the same process for capital improvement projects. These would be funds to be spent as needed, right? And they build upon the contract from 2020 that was for about 1.4 million. So we're adding another 430,000 to that contract for ongoing services.
Right.
And in the staff report, those are all listed. So yeah, I agree with Jed. It's really helpful to have the clarifications, and thanks for making that, making that more clear.
Thank you. Director Mayer, did you?
I don't have any questions. Thanks.
It sounds like this has got some flexibility built into it by design to be able to pivot as things come up, such as like a Nicasio spillway raise. Okay. I'm very much in support of this with the additional details, of course, but we've asked you guys to take on such a big lift on the CIP project in addition to water supplies. There's no way we could do it, I think, without, in terms of scope and magnitude, if we tried to hire staff and do this, it would just push these projects back by years and be quite a bit more, I would assume, for the.
Yeah, absolutely. As I think about this, there's really 2 reasons, and typically those are the reasons you bring on outside support. There are some pieces of simply technical expertise that we benefit of having on call and not having to, on each issue, going out for another contract, different person, RFPs, that takes time and delay. The other one is resources, and really recognizing that, meeting this big increase that we've been talking about, it's really all about being efficient, effective, but also leveraging our staff resources in a thoughtful way to, be able to take on what we're taking on, which is, it's really hats off to the engineering group for really doing what we're doing, but really appreciate the support I'm hearing. And just an understanding of what it takes for project delivery And it really is a three-legged stool in planning, design, construction. So that's.
Well, the ability to accelerate these projects and accelerate everything is very much appreciated because time's not on our side in a lot of these things. So thank you for taking the due diligence to do this. Appreciate it. With that, Terry, public comment.
There are none.
Great. And with that, I'd like to go ahead and entertain a motion to approve the amendment number 3 of the professional services agreement as written with Woodard and Curran.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Director Kusch,
Aye.
Director Mayor,
Aye.
Vice President Smith.
Aye.
And President Sampson.
Yes.
Thank you.
Item number 10.
All right. Good evening. We'll have a couple of meetings the week of March 17th. The Board of Directors regular bi-monthly meeting Tuesday, March 18th, and the Watershed Committee meetings / special meeting of the Board of Directors, March 20th at 8:30 in the morning. And that's because of a closed session that morning. Also, the following week, we'll have the Planning Committee on March 25th, Tuesday at 9:30. And also that same week, we'll have the March 27th Finance and Administration Committee meeting / special meeting of the Board of Directors. The week also of March 17th, we'll have the Tamales Bay Foundation meeting and the Lagunitas TAC meeting. Then the week of March 24th, we'll have the Marin Wildfire Prevention Authority and the Climate and Wildfire Institute's keynote speaker event, which is March 26th, the regional meeting all day on the 27th, and then tours on the 28th. And I just looked on the website and there's no registration yet open for the March 28th. So I'm still waiting for the registration to be open. And
This
that's
Friday is North Bay Watershed.
that is
Okay,
correct.
great. Thank you very much. Okay, with that, we'll go ahead and adjourn the meeting.
Thank you.
You're supposed to knock it when you begin the meeting and then at the end.